still, and it just helps to get it out there. And so today is my second day of the IVIG. So basically, it's basically to help my condition called dermatomyositis. Got it right. Which is basically just inflammation of my muscles and skin. So there's different types. There's polymyositis, which is just basically the muscles, your skin, there's no skin involvement. And then there's inclusion body myositis, which seems to affect usually older folks. And I think there's something called necrotizing myositis. Anyway, long story short, it's all about the inflammation of the muscles, and the treatment usually is prednisone, which is a glucocorticosteroid. And as you can see, it has side effects of puffy face and weight gain and other stuff that you don't see. It can cause cataracts and osteoporosis and so on. So far, I haven't had any. I did do an MRI recently. Not sure, a little bit of problems in my hip. So my doctor just told me, make sure I'm having my calcium, my vitamin D. So you need to take your supplements with this condition. It's an autoimmune condition, so basically the tissues are affecting, I think the normal tissues are affecting my muscles or something like that. So basically, for some reason the cells is attacking the normal tissues for whatever reason. And for me it was tough at the beginning because I didn't know what was going on. I mean, now that I know more about it, I realized that even though I was diagnosed in March, a lot of it started in August of 2017. I started getting my fingers started to get all crinkledy, and like when you're in the water for a long time. And I was like, okay. I had just moved into a new apartment, and the apartment was kind of cold, so I just thought, okay, that was it. And then I visited my aunt in November, and she was the one who told me about this thing called Raynaud's phenomenon, and where the fingers, crinkle, and she's like, a friend of that. And then I was like, okay, I'll check it out later, but I didn't really pay attention to it. But yeah, my fingers were just like crinkly. In December, I went to visit a friend who I had seen in the summer, and she was like, "You lost a lot of weight." I had lost some weight, and I wasn't really trying to, and and yeah, I was like, "Oh, thank you," how it is. And I also had like a really bad cough in December, and like it was like coughing one night. Came back home, and by January, February, that's when things started to get worse. Like my fingers would always get stiff at night. I couldn't, I can do this. I can do this. I couldn't open the doorknob, turn the doorknob without difficulty, or open the bar without difficulty, stepping. And then so I went to the walking clinic because there's a doctor I've been seeing, did some tests. My liver enzymes were super high, so he assumed it was because of alcohol and meat. So he's like, you need to cut down on that stuff. We did a liver ultrasound because he wanted to test to make sure I didn't have any kind of liver problems because my liver enzymes were so high. And he tested me for all the hepatitis, and it came back clean. And so I'm like, what is this? He's like, listen, cut down on your meat, cut down on your alcohol. I wasn't eating that much anyway. And if it doesn't work in 2 weeks, come back. In about 2 weeks, one morning I could not get up. Like I couldn't put myself up. Like you get up from the bed. I had to slide along and grong. And then I was like, wow, this is getting bad. Like before it was just my fingers, but now my feet. And I would sleep. I wouldn't sleep with my feet stretched out. I would keep it bent because if I left it stretched out in the morning, I couldn't. It would take me a good 10-15 minutes for my body to warm up and be able to be mobile. And I would take a shower, and then it would go down a bit, and then I'll be okay, fine, go to work. And it started getting harder and harder. And then I started because I take the TTC, and I couldn't get on the bus unless they lowered it. And everyone was nice, but there was one guy in my last route, was being a jerk. He was giving me attitude because he probably thought I was like, this young girl, why does she need the bus to be lowered? And then sometimes I would go to the subway station, and the escalator would be out, and there was no elevator, so I would have to walk up the stairs. And that really, like, I remember this, like, walking 1, 2, 3, and I remember thinking to myself, back in the day, if someone was doing that and I was trying to get in, I would be like, I wouldn't say anything to them, but in my head I would be like, hello, stop walking so slow. And now here I am in that same position. So that was an eye opener for me about accessibility. It's not that I'm not aware of accessibility and disability. I am, but being in that perspective, being actually experiencing it is completely different. And me, I am takes a while for me to ask for help or support. So I was struggling. I remember visiting a friend, and I couldn't put my shoes back on, and she had to help me put my shoes back on. And still, yeah, I was struggling. But then one morning, it hit me. I tumbled over. I was home getting ready, and I tumbled over, and I couldn't get up. I was in my bedroom, and I couldn't get up. And I live alone, and my phone wasn't nearby, and my landlady was out, and I think she was gone for a week. So I was like, wow. I just cried for a bit, maybe 30 minutes, and then I'm like, you know what? Get going. So I dragged myself and finally picked myself up, and then I was like, you know what? Something's not right. I still didn't go to the ER. I ended up going to a doctor, which was another walk-in clinic, which was close to my house. But this doctor was a little bit, because by then I already told him, listen, I saw our first doctor and we did all the tests and so on. So we did my blood work, and he said maybe you have arthritis. So he gave me in the meantime a muscle relaxant or something like that. And it didn't really work. And then when I came back to see him on a Sunday for the blood work, and he went through it, and he said, you don't have rheumatoid arthritis. It didn't. There's a rheumatoid factor, and you don't have it. But we did some antibody testing, and you have a speckled pattern, which is indicative of lupus. But he said, don't panic. It doesn't mean that. I'm going to forward your information to the rheumatologist. So he forwarded to her, and on the Sunday, and the Monday, this kid took an Uber and went to work. I was feeling a little better though, because he had given me a different type of muscle relaxant, and it was helping. And at work, we were joking around, calling me old lady, because I couldn't walk. Like my coworker would drop me to the bus stop, and even to just get up from his car, I couldn't do it. Like he had to like lower the seat, and he park on his side. He couldn't just drop me and then get off. And yeah, so the Monday, left my office. I came back, and I saw him, like, missed calls to my doctor and text messages as well. And he's like, call me, stop taking your medication, call me. So I called him, and he said, I forwarded your stuff to the rheumatologist, and she said that you need to go to ER, like, ASAP, because those liver enzymes numbers, they are way too high. And okay, so I was like, all right, let's do this. And inside joke, my cheap self was actually going to take the bus to go, because he wanted me to come pick up the documents for him and from him, and then go to the ER. And I was like, okay, so I was going to go take the bus. And then one of my colleagues was like, no. And then he dropped me to the doctor's office, which is like a 30 minutes drive from work. And we picked up the paperwork, and then he dropped me to the ER at St. Joseph's Hospital. And long story short, the next morning, they did a full blood work, and they noticed that my creatine kinase, which is a muscle enzyme, was really high. It was 28,000. And they're like, yeah, and we double checked it, and it is 28,000, and it should only be under 200. And if you're a black person, it can be a little higher, maybe 300, 400, 500, but definitely not 28,000. So basically what was happening was my muscles were just breaking down, and I thought, and then of course it was affecting my joints as well. So this is the reason why I couldn't sit up on my own and lift things on my own and so on. And having a high CK doesn't necessarily mean that you have myositis. You can also get a high CK from CrossFit, like if you do a lot of exercise. So they had to rule all that out as well, and I remember in the ER before I got admitted, some doctors asked me if I did cocaine. I've never done cocaine in my life. And anyway, after some tests, some antibody testing, they said that I have the antibodies for myositis. Just need to determine what type, and it most likely was dermatomyositis, because I had like rash and stuff on my skin, but it wasn't as bad as some other people. It could be just because I have dark skin. But when they did the muscle biopsy, they took a piece of muscle from my leg. By the way, that was so traumatic because like not enough anesthetic was used. He put it on the leg to cut it, but actually he didn't. I guess I have thick legs as well, so to inject the anesthetic inside my leg, it wasn't good enough. So I felt everything, and I had to put a clot in my mouth so I wouldn't scream. That was obviously that. I think that was the most traumatic thing out of this whole thing. So yeah, and they were pumping me with prednisone, which is a glucocorticosteroid or whatever it's called, and it works really fast to bring down the inflammation. It's used for a lot of other conditions as well, and obviously it has side effects, as you can see: puffy face and weight gain, and other internal stuff like can cause cataracts and osteoporosis and so on. So far, other than the weight gain and the puffy face, I did do an MRI recently, and my hip looks a little. My doctor said my hip doesn't look too good, so she wants to make sure that I get off the prednisone. And this is why we're doing the IVIG again. So the IVIG is a very expensive treatment apparently. She said it cost $10,000, so we had to get approval from OHIP. I did it 2018 and it helped, so we're doing it again this year. And we do it twice a month for 3 months. So I've done it in March. I've done it in April. I'm doing one more today. I should really get going soon. And then in May. And once that's done, we'll start reducing the prednisone. I was really happy yesterday because I did my blood work, and my CK was 1,000 plus, and in March it was 3,000 plus. So it's gone on by 2,000 a month, which is really, really good. And I'm hoping that it will go down even more by next month, and then we can start tapering the prednisone very slowly, and then we can start adding another drug called methotrexate. I've used it before. I use the injection ones. I take it once a week. You can take the pills too, but the pills aren't as effective. I stopped taking it last year, which was a stupid mistake. So I did get my CK down to normal, and I got careless. I started feeling good. I stopped taking my prednisone, and next thing you know, it went up again, and I'm back to basically square one. So this time I'm not gonna screw around and stop being shallow about the prednisone. Like it's going to help me, and eventually it'll be gone. I can't just stop taking it because it will put my body into shock, and it will also cause my condition to just flare up again. And I don't want that to happen. Because but the IVIG really helps. Like I feel much stronger, and yeah. So yeah, and what can I say? One of the things that I've learned through this whole thing is that you can't do stuff alone. You still need support, and I'm lucky to have that support. I'm lucky to use the support that I have, professionally and of course personally. And there are people out there that'll help, and sometimes it's not even much. Like sometimes it's just someone just talking to someone about what's going on. or someone saying, sending you messages, because obviously, they're people you're very close with, and they talk all the time, and then you're not, and meeting strangers that I haven't met online who have the same condition, going through the same exact thing, the weight gain, the stuff. And I'm really grateful to be in Canada because I know there are people in the U.S. Some people insurance won't cover it, especially the IVIG, and some people are in debt because of it, and I am grateful. I'm also grateful because I was doing my MRI a couple of months ago, and the technician, she was such a sweet girl, such a nice girl, and she was like, "How are you dealing with the dermatomyositis?" Because I guess that was on my sheet of the reason why I was getting the MRI, and I told her it's okay, but I hate the prednisone and so on. And then she's like, my sister had dermatomyositis, and I was like, oh. And then she's like, but the prednisone, it didn't work for her. I was like, oh, so what did you do? And then she said she died, and I was like, wow, And I know people who died of dermatomyositis, but usually when people die, it's because they haven't gotten any treatment, because with treatment, it's definitely a livable condition. Um, Without treatment, without the prednisone, the muscles will break down, and then it affects the lungs and the heart muscles. Because I remember when I was in the hospital, I had to do a heart ultrasound. I did heart ultrasound, liver ultrasound, MRIs. It was intense, but St. Joe's did a fantastic job, and they continue to do a fantastic job. Now because of this, I have a family physician who's also at St. Joe's, and my rheumatologist is at St. Joe's, and I live 5 minute drive from St. Joe's, so everything worked out pretty well. And yeah, it takes a toll. Obviously, you look differently, you feel differently, you can't do things like you used to. I used to love running like crazy, and um, you know, I can't really do that much anymore. But I'm gonna get there. Just slowly. I can do exercises, and I just also have to push myself, and I haven't been pushing myself, and maybe with this self isolation I can. And yeah, and basically that's it. I gotta get going to my IVIG. I hope everyone is staying safe, and hopefully we'll all get through this if we practice what we need to do. And remember that just because you can handle the COVID, people like me, if I get it, I'm at a higher risk, as well as people with diabetes and people with other conditions, underlying conditions, and of course our elders, our grandparents, our parents. They're like, it's not just because they're elderly. Um, it's not good seeing all these elderly people die. I have grandparents as well, and I'm sure a lot of us do. So hopefully, we can all this will be done